$99 per pound. That's all at Fairway Meat Market in the Rockledge Square Shopping Center, just south of 84th and Van Dorn.
The end of the school year is drawing near, which means graduation parties are coming soon. Are you prepared for that if you're hosting? Fear's Cheese Spread is the dip that brings everyone together to celebrate graduations and to close out a great school year. And it goes well with crackers, meats, soups, and more. How could you throw a party without it? Get to your local grocery store today and load up on Fuhrer's Cheese Spread. No graduation party is complete without it.
Community means something different to everyone. But for me, it means cheering on those around you during the good times and helping them out during the tough times. I'm softball player Jordy Ball, and I've been blessed with the support of my friends, family, coaches, and community throughout my life. When looking for a bank to call home, it was easy to choose Midwest Bank. I never feel like just another customer, and they're proud to support their communities. They love what they do, and it shows. Your community, your bank, Midwest Bank.
We're in between high school baseball games here as part of our high school baseball state coverage here on 93.7 The Ticket. So myself, Jake Buckoven, and DP are going to be in studio chopping it up, talking a little bit of sports in between the games as we wait Nick Sainer to let us know when they're ready for their second game out there at Warner Park. The first one was a good one. If you missed it, went into extras for the defending champs Lincoln East to take down Millard North. Again, this is a double elimination tournament, so keep that in mind. Millard North still has some life, some fight within them, and they sure gave the fight to Lincoln East today, but Lincoln East rallied there in the late innings and then scored the winning run in the bottom of the ninth there, to win 5-4. So again, just stay with us as we've got state baseball action coming to you today, this weekend, and then even into the beginning of next week. But for now, let's talk a little bit of college football as some interesting things going on in the world of college football. And let's start with we can get to kind of the bigger discussion later on, which I want to get to, which is a talk about maybe bringing the roster size down as we transition from one era to the next in college football. They're trying to figure out how to pay some of this NIL through the universities. And so there's just so many different changes coming along. And one of those changes could be a reduction in the roster size. And of course, that would mean a lot to Nebraska historically. But I did want to start off with some visitor information. Nebraska will have an official visit this week from David Sanders, who is the number 2 player overall, according to 24/7 Sports. Offensive tackle out of Charlotte, North Carolina, goes 6'6", 270. He had his final 6 that he listed a few weeks ago in Tennessee, South Carolina, Ohio State, Georgia, Clemson, and Alabama. But apparently Nebraska has been able to jump into it. I wouldn't necessarily expect a commitment from over the weekend, but David Sanders, we've seen over the years, Nebraska was kind of flirting with Brandon Baker last year. Who knows if Dylan Raiola would have committed earlier, maybe they could have gotten a little bit more of a rally and maybe a better class. Is that kind of what you think you're seeing here, DP? Is other top players understanding and seeing what Dylan that Dylan came to Nebraska? There must be a reason, and maybe you want to play with one of the top up-and-coming quarterbacks.
Sorry, there we go. I think a lot of this, and again, I've been clear and adamant about my stand on recruiting and how it's done and the coverage of it, because to me it's a little disingenuous because we spend a lot of time on people who aren't going to choose Nebraska for a variety of reasons. If you want to talk about why they choose or why they don't choose, those are different conversations, right? This young man is a player of note in the national recruiting scale. Then you have to answer yourself the question, why would you consider Nebraska? Under current situation, circumstance, what Nebraska is offering and about to offer changes how you approach everybody else. Let's say Nebraska in its new NIL world has put together some pretty amazing packages for student athletes. and you using that to barter against other packages. So to get Nebraska to set a number for you at a high level number, because they know that if you can reach the Dylan Raiolas of the world, you can reach anybody in the country. Then it becomes getting that number and using it as leverage for other programs. Now, not all of these programs are going to match the one-time offer of Nebraska. Nebraska's taking its shot as it being their one. He could be a one in the next rotation of players. I'd ask, is there a better offensive lineman in the state of Nebraska or Iowa or within the 500-mile radius? And the answer is probably, So if you can get on board and at least get the visit, then you take your shot that, hey, guess what? We may be the perfect fit. He may decide he wants to be in a place where he gets to be a part of building the thing as it hasn't been for 2 decades. Right? He gets to do, because there are players around the country who want to be that guy. They want to be the one. I mean, and think to Jordy Ball in softball, that she wanted to be a part of the rebuild. Dylan Raiola wanted to be a part of the rebuild and rebranding. There are young people in the country who want to do that. But there's also the other side, that getting the number set helps this student athlete get what they want from where they want, or at least pitch that as the idea. I spent a lot of, I don't even think I told you about it. I spent a lot of time talking to other athletic programs, kind of to find out kind of how they're doing business. And I can tell you that Virginia, North Carolina, Washington, Oregon, USC, UCLA have some unique plans in place. And Nebraska has gotten active in it. And it would be appealing to me as a student athlete to consider Nebraska. As it currently stands, I would consider Nebraska in every sport. That's a huge advancement of the program, because 3 years ago, that wouldn't have been said. So kudos to Nebraska for what they're doing to get people interested. Kudos to the young man for thinking outside the box, whoever's leading him, whatever they're leading him to, right? He hasn't said, here's priority one for me. He hasn't said winning is priority one. He hasn't said money is priority one. He hasn't said NFL advancement, preparation, development isn't. Maybe it's just the coaching staff. But having an NFL adjacent offensive line coach doesn't hurt.
Yeah.
Doesn't hurt, Bock. It doesn't hurt to have somebody who can tell you what it takes to have that sort of success.
Well, if you look at, again, his other 6 that he's down to, Tennessee, South Carolina, Ohio State, Georgia, Clemson, and Alabama, generally Southern teams, and again, from Charlotte. So maybe there's a connection there. A lot of them contenders, but, South Carolina is not the same program that Alabama or Georgia has been recently. So, there is, it seems like there is some interest in different, there's different things that are maybe pulling him or what he's thinking about.
South Carolina is like, that's his hometown.
Yeah.
The border for Charlotte, we spent a lot of time in Charlotte going to South Carolina. They're connected. The boosters are highly connected, and they're supremely active in Charlotte, North Carolina. Playing in the South, that's going to be the best option for him, aside from Clemson, for family to see him play, and for friends and family to be able to get there, and for him to be able to get back and forth. That's part of the process. Is you look close first, then you look at the highest level, then distance becomes a factor, and then you decide, is playing at Georgia, is that enough of an issue? Well, from Charlotte, that's not a real big issue. Charlotte to Georgia is, that's an easy drive on a Saturday morning. So that's not really the issue. Alabama, it's a little bit of a longer drive, but still doable. Nebraska's a reach.
Yeah.
Like, that's a thing you have to plan. And trying to find, if you haven't tried to find a direct flight from Omaha to Charlotte, North Carolina, you understand that, okay, it's a crapshoot. But again, the fact that Nebraska's on the list, Georgia and Alabama are on every top 100 player in the country's list. That's just the way. I mean, Dylan danced down there. He danced.
No much need for explanation. Georgia's dominated the last couple of years. Alabama's dominated for 15 years.
And also understand that on these trips to Georgia, Dylan was still making those Georgia trips. So he's got a whole bunch of players, top-level players at other positions who visited when he did, who was on campus, and those relationships build. And sometimes it's a thing. Listen, I chose my college because of somebody that I played against in high school, because it was like, oh, man, we'd be pretty good together. We'd be pretty good together. And having somebody to lean on in this day and age, big deal, man.
Well, it's interesting too. I was just listening. I saw this the other day come across as, because you do think maybe from the outside, if you haven't been through recruiting, okay, here's the things I would list off, but a lot of it probably is just going to come down to comfortability. Calvin Johnson said that he visited Georgia Tech, he visited Georgia. Georgia would have been his other school. Obviously, ended up going to Georgia Tech. He said, I just like to visit Georgia Tech better. When I went to Georgia, they just kind of took me to a party, and it seemed like it was it was kind of in a bad neighborhood, even though it was on campus. And so he just described it just kind of felt like a weird visit. And then his Georgia Tech visit, he was hosted by Reggie Ball, and he just liked what they had going for it. He mentioned it was his first time experiencing marijuana, so maybe that kind of helped him into it too. But whatever it is, and I'm not advocating for that. That's just what he said. Was that he just enjoyed, and so you can imagine even back then. I know Georgia isn't the program then that it was now, but it was kind of a sleeping giant for the longest time until recently. But it was still a somewhat of a giant.
Georgia's always, even when they were bad, they were still a giant.
Oh yeah. In Bark Rick, bad is okay. I mean, they're going 10-3 at worst every year. So, but they were a better program than Georgia Tech, but he still picked Georgia Tech because he liked the visit better.
So this is what I would ask you: that just think from a ticket standpoint. There are people that would go, if you visited various shows throughout the course of the day, you identify, you pick, and you go, wait a minute. If Farley is Columbus, Georgia, if Rashawn's Louisiana, right? He's Louisiana State. Let's put that in the pocket. Bill Bush being Nebraska, Carricker being outside of Nebraska, but Nebraska adjacent. Omaha with Rashawn and I mean, the difference between Creighton and Nebraska. We all identify based on personalities and priorities. Doesn't mean any of them are bad. It just means that you just connect with different people on different levels. Jay Foreman in Minnesota, like you would go, oh, if I got to hang out with Jay Foreman and Chuck Foreman for 48 hours, man, call me a gopher. Like I'm
there you go.
right. So you have to understand that with young people, teenagers and parents, they all have, like, all of these student athletes have parents who emotionally tied themselves to players and programs for whatever reasons. Then it becomes choice time, and then it gets real, because you have to sometimes put aside preference for priority. And it depends on the family and how they work and how they operate. My family, the recruiting, I had offers from all around the country, but my grandmother wanted me close. My grandmother. That was the boss,
Tough
man.
to say no to,
That was the boss, right? And she said, but here's the thing. She said, okay, I don't want you to go south. In that time, made sense, right? She was in Atlanta, like, hey, they're killing black boys in Atlanta. Don't go to school in Atlanta. How about that? I went to UNC Greensboro, and there was a Klan march literally the day I was being recruited. Like, I was there.
That's a tough recruiting day.
Bad recruiting day for UNCG. But she said, if you're going to go, like, she wanted me to go to Howard because it was close, but I didn't want to be close. I didn't want to be that close. I was going to go to Ohio because they were going to let me play two sports. Far away, I would have to grow up. Like, that became a thing in my head. I need to grow up. Like, I know that. But ultimately, when Richmond called, that's kind of the best of all these things. Playing at a high level, being close enough to home, but far away enough from home. Grandma can get in the car and get to me, but if mom and dad decide to come visit on short notice, I have 2 hours to get right.
Yeah, that's a good thought process going into it.
Young DP had other priorities, man. I just want to say, like, we forget in the recruiting. This is why when we talk recruiting, I always kind of lean in and back to him. So I went through it as an athlete. I went through it. I had, last I kept track, there were over 300 of my athletes who played in college. So you go through the recruiting process with them. And it's evolved over the years, decades. And today's version of it, we forget. These are 16, 17, 18-year-olds, man. And a lot of cases, the parents, Bock, if you had been recruited for college, how much experience and knowledge would your parents have been able to provide on, hey, Bock, here's why you should make this choice? No, they hadn't gone through it. So they'd have been like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
Right? So you have to remember that when you talk about these athletes from various parts of the country, even when the state of Nebraska, it's not even simple. Bock.
Yeah. There's a lot that goes into it.
People in Nebraska aren't choosing Nebraska. Mm-hmm. Ask the question why, and then figure out how you're going to bridge what those student athletes and families need to get those students more en masse to the University of Nebraska-Lincoln.
Talking a little bit of a chit-chat here with about recruiting with DP here. I'm Jake Bockoven. It is in-between game segment here. We got a few of those today. Well, this is our only in-between game segment, but we do have another game coming up in here in just a few minutes. Millard South and Lincoln Southwest. We'll await Nick and see if when he is ready, we'll send it out to him. But we got to take a quick break. We'll be back after this break.
This is Lincoln's home for sports talk on the FM dial. Also online at theticketfm.com. On the internet, KNTK FM Firth, 93.7 The Ticket.
The weather is hot, the kids are out of school, and you're on your way to the lake and summer road trips. Are you getting to your vacation spot comfortably, or is your car letting you down? Mullen Motors Lot is full of great vehicles to take home, so you don't have to worry about your current car barely surviving another road trip. Come check out their lot just north of 48th and Layton and find your next ride for summer road trips and beyond. Mullen Motors.
No tag-ons, just quality vehicles. Mullen Motors.
At Union Bank, people don't have your money. Your money has people. First home people, investment people, people who answer the phone and your chats, dream car people, dream retirement people, driving your dream car in your dream retirement people, small business people, credit card people, and all the other people you need. At Union Bank, our people help you do more than you dreamed possible. So stop in and say hello. We can't wait to see you. Union Bank and Trust. Member FDIC.
MWR is dedicated to building attractive, affordable steel buildings that exceed your expectations. From commercial to residential to agricultural storage, steel buildings are cost-effective, attractive, and versatile. Plus, they're a lasting investment and an ideal choice. MWR uses Sentinel Building Systems out of Albion and can service you all over the state and region. If you have interest in a steel building, post frame building, or fencing, give MWR a call today at 402-980-5273 or go to mwrbuildingandfence.com. Ever wish you had another light switch on the other side of the room on a dark night? How much better would you sleep at night if you had a ceiling fan in your room? The High Electric Service Department is here to make your electrical what-ifs a reality. Whether you're looking to replace some outdated light fixtures or brighten up your counters with under-cabinet lighting, High Electric can handle all types of residential electrical installations and services. Give Erica a call at 402-466-6606 or visit high-electric.com to get started.
Here you go. Coffee's on me and my new BFF. I thought I was your best friend forever. BFF like best financial friend at Members Own Credit Union. Right now, they're offering $100 when you consolidate or transfer a loan or an existing credit card balance and meet requirements. Plus, you get great rates and free advice from a financial partner that will put you first. That sounds like a match made in heaven. Members Own Credit Union is the type of bestie you can count on. Get started today at memberzonecu.org/BFF. Limitations may apply. Equal housing opportunity.
Scissors and Scotch has opened their Lincoln location at 30th and Yankee Hill. Don't settle for an ordinary haircut. Go above and beyond at Scissors and Scotch. Scissors and Scotch provides your classic haircut service with optional membership discounts. From now until June 6th, Scissors and Scotch is offering the Founders Reserve Special for those who want massive savings. Learn more or book your appointment by visiting scissorsscotch.com or check out Scissors and Scotch's brand new location at 30th and Yankee Hill.
it is our in-between segment here as we're in between games of Nebraska high school state basketball. Again, stay tuned. Excellent call from Nick Sainert in game one. Defending champs Lincoln East outlasted Millard North. The next game we've got on the docket, the 4-seed Millard South and the 5-seed Lincoln Southwest. Again, we'll bring that to you shortly once Nick is ready to go, and he'll be ready to go when they're ready to go. So it's not Nick's fault if it takes a minute here.
No, they got to transition infield. They got to redo the field, redress. You got to give the two teams that just played 8 innings a chance to get up and get out on their own time. Next teams to set up. They got to warm up, got to throw, you get some swings in, and the officials have to get control of it all. So.
Yeah, and the plan was to go at 11:30, but the extra innings lasted past 11. There you go. Okay, well, they're going to have to take a while. So fair enough, and no problem here because it gives us a chance to talk a little bit more sports, which is interesting. We just talked a little bit of recruiting and kind of thinking about that. And we mentioned David Sanders, one of the top players in the nation, going to take an official visit this weekend just to clean that up or finish that up. Caleb Benning, who is Omaha West Side commit right now, will also be on campus along with Edge, a visitor, Nicholas Clayton from Florida, 3-star out of there, and then a 3-star offensive tackle, Broderick Scholl out of Brigsby, Oklahoma, top 200 kid, listed 196 on 24/7 Sports. So pretty darn good recruiting haul and recruiting weekend for Nebraska. It's interesting as we talk about those guys, obviously scholarship players, scholarship prospects anyway. We could see an end to the walk-ons in the future, I suppose, of the Power 4 as it is currently stands, and who knows how long that will last. Power 5 is now out of the way because the Pac-12 didn't last. But there is a talk going on in college football right now, a proposal that college football moving forward, of course, there's all these changes, maybe somewhat of a pay structure from the universities to the players coming about. So I guess an aim and a goal to kind of put some guardrails around this. We've talked for the last couple of years how this is it's kind of the wild west right now. They're trying to organize this a little bit better. In the process of doing so, there is a proposal out there or a thought to trim the rosters, which there's no official roster size that you have to get down to. Nebraska sometimes can balloon up to 125 or so, but a lot of teams across the country have about 115. Of course, a lot of that, you have the 85 scholarship players and then your walk-ons. There's talk to trim that down from the 115 or so to down to 85 to 95 players. Of course, if it's 95, you would still have room there for a few walk-ons. I mean, anything that you know about college football now is kind of up for a change. So you think about 85 scholarships now, maybe they change that number. For what it's worth, at the present time, no more than 70 players can appear in a game. So sometimes you see travel roster and stuff like that. So you can't play your whole 115 guys if you have them out there. But to follow up on this too, the idea right now, this was an idea that the I suppose the suits had, and then they shared it with the 80s and the coaches, and that was met with backlash. So we'll see how this goes. But of course, Nebraska, particularly, a lot of programs that have in the country have walk-ons, but Nebraska in particular has a proud history of walk-ons fighting through and end up being major contributors on the roster. You go through a list, and I'm missing many, but just for a few: I Am Hip, Andy Janovich, the Makovica brothers, Spencer Long, Brandon Riley, Jared Tomich, John Perella, Stuart Bradley, Scott Shanley, Alex, the specialist, Alex Henry, Sam Cook, Matt O'Hanlon. Those are the names around here that might be impacted by a move like this, but it's also around the country. I mean, there's names for every college football team that have fought past and made a mark. Baker Mayfield, a Heisman Trophy winner, originally a walk-on. Stetson Bennett, who, of course, won a national title or two with Georgia, originally a walk-on. J.J. Watt, Clay Matthews, Hunter Renfro, Jared Aberderis, Jim Leonard, names like that. I suppose when we look at this possibility, it will be, again, a change, and college football is changing. I don't know if those players that we're talking about would just never get their opportunity, because I think that's your initial thought. Maybe they would have to work their way up there, because oftentimes when you're a walk-on, I suppose at Nebraska, you have other opportunities to go elsewhere. And so the modern day of changing schools and transfer portal and all that, and who knows, as they try to shake all this out, what the rules will be there. But it would be a considerable difference and something that kind of takes away from the Nebraska. I think a lot of Nebraska fans love the walk-on story, love the fact that you watch a guy rise from taking a chance on, take a chance on me and I can prove that I can play at this level and then go and do that. So what are your kind of thoughts as you immediately think of maybe walk-ons being cut out of college football, at least very limited?
I don't look, numbers are numbers. There's the number of football players who exist in the country who get to play at the high school level versus the weeding out that happens to go to play in college. You're talking percentage points. So, okay, it's not for everybody. Nebraska says that. Not for everybody.
Yeah.
If you can play, they will find you. In this day and age, they will find you. This is not 1985 where we're doing recruiting by carrier pigeon and slow mail.
Yeah.
Everybody has a resource in which helps them to get immediate gratification in their recruiting. Direct access that now in a click of a button, you can respond to coaches and coaches to players, right? There's no DMs back in 1986. There's no internet. So you can't, the access, old cartridge VHS tapes being mailed, snail mailed across the country, hoping that somebody on the receiving end will look at it, sit down, clunk it in the system, go back and forth, grind it back and forth. It's not like 24/7 was available, max preps, huddle. Like it didn't exist. It didn't exist. So access is different now, and money is different now, because the old story was that we didn't have money. No, you had money. You chose not to. Everybody that walked on at Nebraska had an opportunity somewhere else. And the term walk-on only means what the receiver wants it to mean. Eric Strickland was a walk-on for the Husker basketball program. Why? Because he was professional in another sport. So he couldn't receive a scholarship. Okay. He's a walk-on. Great story.
Yeah.
No, he was an elite athlete.
He still say the best walk-on in Nebraska basketball.
Yeah, right. Like he's an elite athlete who simply, due to situation and circumstance, walked on in air quotes, the University of Nebraska Lincoln. The reality is everybody you named that played at Nebraska was a walk-on could have gone somewhere else and played. They chose to play at Nebraska and figured, you know what, I'll bet on myself. But we all bet on ourselves. I mean, I'm in high school. Again, if you're playing 3 sports, I'm betting on myself that the work that I get, the talent that I develop and carve and craft by playing 3 sports for all those years in high school, it enhanced the opportunity. And I got recruited in baseball because of football. I got recruited in track because of baseball. Through all the things, it changes. So if they reduce the numbers, now again, there's several ways to do this. One, the change of business is set to hold the people at the top accountable, right? And once this is set, there's a big, huge billion-dollar settlement that has to take place to give back things that should have been given in the first place, right? And there'll be some discussion over that.
Oh, yeah.
But if you're Nebraska in this day and age, and Bock, this is, again, how this thing is going to play out. If Nebraska carries 150 people total, including walk-ons, 65 of them being walk-ons, and in a day where you could actually pay the players NIL based on their level of importance, priority in the program, what's stopping a major university from taking walk-ons and turning them into scholarship players and then using your top players' NIL money to pay them?
Well, I think that's kind of the idea behind cutting it, is that, you can have a scholarship limit at 85, but your preferred
It didn't say
walk-on-
what 85. It didn't say what 85. It doesn't say what 85. And think about how much better you build from the bottom of the program. So if Nebraska's bottom 85 players, bottom 65 players, the guys who practice, butt Gus, man, they do their thing, right? And they're at the bottom pushing top because they want money. They're getting scholarships, room, tuition, board, etc. But if they outwork the guy on the third team where that guy's receiving money, cash money, on top of enough money to pay the bills, right? Grants and all those other things that show up, that's his motivation. It builds your deeper pool from the bottom up, and you improve. The standard is set at the bottom of a program, not at the top. So you have to push it. all the way up. And guess what? If the dogs at the bottom who are just getting scholarship money, they're no longer walk-ons. They're scholarship players. The language will change. Being a scholarship player would mean, hey, you're settling for benefits rather than being paid.
Mm-hmm.
And the value of the people being paid is that they've earned the right to be above that. Third team makes a certain level. Second team makes a greater level, which motivates the third team to push the second team. Because guess what? I want your money, bro. You're not twice as good as I am. You're receiving twice the money. I'm going to kick your tail every day of practice. Scholarship guy looks at the guy with extra cash in his bank account. Hey, Bock, when I put my hand in the dirt against you, I'm kicking your tail because I need some of that cash.
Yeah.
So I think the evolution of sports is changing more in that it will take the people at the top a change of philosophy, a change of vision and vantage. They've got to see this thing more differently than they've ever seen it before. And the really smart programs, the advanced programs, will be ahead of everybody else who will play catch up. And when you're in a place like Nebraska that it controls all the resources, all of the football resources in the state of Nebraska go to the Cornhuskers, 90% of it, right? Some goes to Kearney. Okay, fine.
Yeah.
Cool. But Nebraska has the ability with all of the power resources, financial backing, boosters of a fan base, et cetera, that Nebraska has a unique situation because what other school, what other football program, major football program that is talking NIL and transfer portal has full control of the financial resources of that state like Nebraska? It's a short list. It's a very tiny meeting. When Nebraska calls that meeting and says, this is how we're doing business, they will dictate how everybody else responds if they get their stuff together.
Well, and it's interesting too, as things change and as things develop and college sports turns into more of a professional sports league and a professional model, which I think is inevitably happening. I want to ask you this because it's not it's not going to be well received, but I've said this for a while because it just kind of is what it is. How important should when you go to the pro model, when you're talking about lots of money being thrown around here, a job, it's no longer just how important is academics, the scholarship side of it. Okay, it's good to get an opportunity, but I've said for a while, and it's true for some guys, college isn't for everybody. Could there be more of here's a scholarship equivalent if you don't necessarily go to college? Because the other thing is here, and we've been doing this for a while. You can go to the Rashad McCants thing, and everybody's kind of had their own deal.
Yeah.
Not every guy that is on scholarship and going to class is necessarily doing that part anyway.
But here's the thing. When we remove all of the adjectives and all of the peripheral stuff that gets in the way of how we think about things, remove that. Student athlete. I was taught far too late in life, but early enough that I could adjust to it, that the academic side of this was for me. That was for me. What I did academically, that was for me. That meant that no matter what happened physically, because you don't control an injured knee, you don't control a coach choosing you as the starter or captain or leader. You don't control your results. You control your work. And if you apply that to athletics, then the same person that I am athletically, I am academically, because I learned how to process thought and say, you know what? The academic thing protects me. My brother, who was an Olympic athlete, when he was being recruited, he was recruited by Nebraska in football, even though he didn't play football in high school. He was a track guy, sprinter. One of the 10 best sprinters in the country, right? He chose the one school that offered him a full, guaranteed academic scholarship so that they could never affect him athletically, and that he would have the rest of his life with that academic degree that allowed him to make decisions that were good for him and his family forever. He passed that on to me, and I went, well, gee, that's a game changer. That's a game changer, because it means that if you take two 20-point-a-game basketball players, and one is an A student and one is a C student, who are you going to invest and guarantee $250,000 worth of resource to? the one that you trust academically, because he's making better decisions and he's more complete as a grown-up.
But what if the guy that's a C average is averaging 25 a game, and the one that's an A is averaging 18 a game?
We know the guy that averages 25 but won't go to class. We know that guy. We know that he's going to take a shortcut. We know that guy, there's certain things that we can't put on him. There are intellectual things that we cannot put on him that we can put on the guy that's the 20.4.0 student.
Well, I'm not in any way arguing against college or an education. Right. I can argue against the cost of college and certain things like that. But
get them, Bock.
But in any case,
get them, Bock.
I don't know. I just, at times it seems like the business is it's getting so pro sports that like the college part, like this guy's got it's been a long time since a D is keeping the starting quarterback at Nebraska out of starting a game.
Well, but that's systemic, and there are boundaries and borders in place to make sure that guy stays eligible. His priority to the university has a different level than the student who doesn't play sports, who's not the star quarterback, who's just going to go back to his dorm room and get to work or go drinking. Different priorities, different focuses. Nothing that's happening now hasn't already happened in sports, in college sports. Yes, they will have the discussion. Minor League Baseball has set the tone. And listen, you can draft and let you just go pro in baseball. Basketball, they've experimented. Football will have that experiment soon enough in whatever way it is, and soon enough being 5 or 6 years. But there is a difference. Me as a coach, I never wanted one of my players, no matter what kind of athlete they were, to go to the next level and not be prepared. They will not fail. My athletes will not fail because of athletic ability or otherwise. They will fail if they struggle academically. That's where they struggle. And the academic struggle shows up at practice. It shows up at the late night, man, because you're trying to chase things that you don't have control over and you don't have a plan for. Give young people the notion that the academic thing protects them. It protects them from bad contracts, from bad business dealings, spend your time learning it stuff, right? That's what the academic is for. There are separate sources, pools of people, and it's cool, Bock, because it'll happen at some point. But for now, everything that's happening has already, if they're offering cash for players to come to school, done it. Right? Already done it. Need to maneuver around walk-on status? Done it. Already been done. There's nothing happening now. We're just getting a look behind the screen, behind the curtain to the Wizard of Oz and how business has really been done all this time. And a big part of the walk-on deal is the $3 billion settlement that college football has to pay back into a pool of student athletes because they lied to them and didn't tell them the truth and didn't protect them. Right? So then they know, okay, $3 billion is revenue. We got to do that. And then we're going to act like we're doing the right thing by offering 25% of the new revenue pool. 25%. That's half of what pro athletes get. And guess what? When the college athletes union, they're going to work from the same level. Because otherwise, look, you can't put a college restriction on a pro athlete. So guess what's going to happen? They're going to go, the union's going to say, no, we deserve more. And colleges will have to adjust again, right? Money versus doing the right thing. Understand that Nebraska has, again, I'll repeat it. They have the opportunity to be proactive and do things, treat their student athletes so much better than anybody else because they have all the resources. You make food, bruh. Nebraska actually makes food. You can give them the best of that. You can give them more space. They become heroes in a space. They will have every access that can't be offered anywhere else in the country if Nebraska is proactive. I'll say it. Be a pioneer, not a settler. Don't wait to see what everybody else is doing. Do what's best for your young people, for Nebraska's young people, before Georgia can get to them, before Texas can get to them, before LSU comes up with an idea that, man, Nebraska's only paying 24%. We're going to pay 32%. And this is how it pays out. Nope. Nebraska can be a leader in this thing. They can be a pioneer. They can set it. And then all the other stuff that other folks are doing, Hey, man, you look out. You know what it's like to look from your hill down at what everybody's doing versus looking uphill over a fence around the corner to see what other people
Harder
are doing.
to see. Harder to see.
Hey, man. I'm just saying.
All right, that'll wrap it up for in-between game segment. Hopefully it was entertaining and informative for you, as college football is always going, is in the next couple of years going to change significantly, has changed significantly in the last couple of years as well. But we're ready for more state high school baseball action here. Millard South and Lincoln Southwest, the 4-5 seeds going at it. Coming up next year on 93.7 The Ticket. We'll send it back out to Nick here in just a few minutes after the commercial break.
A team succeeds when they work together. Banking's no different. At UBT, we're in your corner for every financial move you want to make. Your money's backed by a roster of experts who put in the work to know you and your community. So whether you're opening a savings account, buying a home, or planning your future, you always know who to turn to. Working together toward your financial goals. That's a win in our playbook. Union Bank and Trust. Equal housing lender, member FDIC.
The weather is hot, the kids are out of school, and you're on your way to the lake and summer road trips. Are you getting to your vacation spot comfortably, or is your car letting you down? Mullen Motors Lot is full of great vehicles to take home, so you don't have to worry about your current car barely surviving another road trip. Come check out their lot just north of 48th and Layton and find your next ride for summer road trips and beyond. Mullen Motors.
No tag-ons, just quality vehicles. Mullen Motors.